then region X, the average. So first thing that you have to do when, of course, in fact, in all the critical reasoning questions is you have to get the main conclusion. Yeah. In region X, the average horn mass and body length of adult bighorn sheep has dropped over the past several decades. Okay. So this is an observation, right? Something, an average that, this has happened over the past several decades. Fine. The cause is probably regulations prohibiting hunting of smaller animals. These regulations have undoubtedly given smaller sheep an advantage in surviving to a reproductive age. Therefore, genes for smaller adult size most likely have spread through the population. So, guys, what is the main conclusion over here? He says that we have observed that the average horn mass and body length of these sheep has dropped over the, we are seeing that there was this sheep, and now these are getting smaller and smaller and smaller, right, in size. Body mass is reducing, whatever. Now, he says the cause is probably regulations prohibiting hunting of smaller animals. He's saying the cause of this is probably regulations. Then the author says these regulations have undoubtedly given smaller sheep an advantage, that the regulations have given smaller sheep an advantage in surviving to a reproductive age. And that is why the genes for the smaller adult size have spread across the population. Because that these regulations have allowed sheep to reach smaller sheep to reach a reproductive age and whatever, and that is why then their genes have spread across the population, right? So think of the role of each statement over here. And this is exactly where we say that logical role is very important. What is the main conclusion over here? The main conclusion is where the author is saying the cause is probably regulations prohibiting hunting of smaller animals. This is the main point he's making. Yeah, he says this is what has been observed, that the size is reducing. Then he says the cause for this reduction in size is probably regulations. And then he goes on to explain why. He says how, how is it? Why is he saying that these regulations are the cause? He says because these regulations have given smaller sheep an advantage. And that is why their genes most likely have spread through the population. So he is using these two statements to support his conclusion. And what is his conclusion? That the cause is the regulations. The cause for the reduction in size is the regulations. Do you understand this? Yeah, that is why I'm saying, sometimes your sequence of your statements in the argument could very well be jumbled. You have to think of what logical role is being played by each statement. So now think about it. Now forget what is written over here. Just think about it. Visualize that someone is telling you this, that, the size of this sheep has gone down over the decades. And he says, it's probably because of the regulations. What the regulations have done is that they have, protected the smaller sheep. So then the genes of the smaller sheep are all over there in the population. So what is that one point that this guy made? What was this author's opinion? That one point. His point was that the cause of the reduction in size is the regulations. Does that make sense? Yeah. And so if, when this is my conclusion, then because then my answer is not B. B says the first is a premise supporting the second. The first is a premise supporting the second. Well, or maybe the second is the one supporting the first, whatever. But the second is an observation for which a causal explanation is presented. Second is not an observation. The observation is actually the first one for which a causal explanation is provided. So this is not correct. First is a premise. We're looking at option B now. First is a premise supporting the second. So first is a premise which is supporting the second. Yeah, kind of. It's an observation which is supporting this. That's fine. Nothing conflicting there. Second is the main conclusion, but not the only conclusion. Do you understand why this is wrong? Because second is not the main conclusion. It is the intermediate conclusion. It is not the only conclusion that is also correct, but the main conclusion is that the cause is probably regulations. The other two statements are supporting this main conclusion. Right? Look at C. The first describes a phenomenon for which the main conclusion presents an explanation. So correct, this is a phenomenon, it is an observation for which the main conclusion does present an explanation. It does. It says the cause is probably regulations. Perfect. The second is a subsidiary conclusion supporting the main conclusion. Perfect. This is an intermediate conclusion, a subsidiary conclusion, which is supporting the main conclusion. So that is why my answer over here is C. It is not B. Do you understand this? So whoever got it wrong, they got the answer as B. Do you understand now why this is not B? I'll give you half a minute in case there is something that you want to ask, write down, go ahead. Are we good? Yeah, be very careful of what your main conclusion is. Look at the entire argument in its entirety. Yeah, look at exactly what role each statement is playing. That is what I said. Sometimes, and especially when it is ending with this, starting with the therefore, it's the last statement of the argument. It just seems so obvious that, yeah, this is going to be the conclusion, right? But we are not thinking through in that case. I have to just look at the argument and figure out, first of all, what the main conclusion is. After that, I can figure out the roles of all the other statements. Right?